Welcome, everyone. Thank you for listening in to this session, Ways to Achieve SOC Efficiency, Security Operations Center Efficiency using Microsoft Sentinel. Keep in mind that this session will go over only a subset of the features that help provide efficiency. There's plenty more areas and always new things being cooked up in the developer's kitchen for Microsoft Sentinel. Okay, here's a slide with some additional resources for learning more or just keeping up with what's constantly new with Microsoft Sentinel. I am Rod Trent. I'm a senior cloud security advocate at Microsoft. What that means is I'm a good listener. I'm an advocate both for the product but also for our customers and our partners. My job is to sit between our product teams and our customers and partners and gather feedback so that we can determine how best to serve our customers based on that feedback. That feedback comes back to Microsoft. We determine, do we need to update the docs? Do we need to create new features? Do we need to create a bug report? Whatever that feedback is deserving will be taken care of. Okay? So thank you so much, obviously, for listening to me today. I truly appreciate getting to talk about all the cool things that I'm part of here at Microsoft. But I think more importantly, right, it's those things I believe will be more of a benefit to all of you that I actually really enjoy talking about the most. And before we start our discussion today, let me say up front that this time of year is my absolute favorite because I get to spend it with my family and my friends, right? All of my kids and everything, we're all together under one roof for the first time in a long time, since the last time we were together, which it gets to be a little bit, the gap gets to be wider and wider. There's nothing in this world more important to me than that, okay? However, if you are someone that has difficulty this time of year for whatever reason, or feels lonely, or needs someone to talk to, I hope you're comfortable enough to reach out. Most of us have people like that in our lives, fortunately. But if you don't, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, okay? I'd be more than happy to be that person for anyone struggling during the holiday season or any other time. I just absolutely want you to know that. You see in this slide, the ways that you can connect with me. I'm a very public person and can be reached literally at any time. I'm always checking things to make sure everything's going just fantastically. So don't hesitate to use any of these to reach out. Okay? Last thing, okay, before we get started, I'm a huge Christmas movie fan. So you'll see as we go along during this session, I've dedicated some space to some of my favorite movies. Okay? Some of them are probably yours too. Okay, so here's what I want to talk about today. Here's what I intend to cover during our time together. Okay, number one, let's level set so we're all on the same page. Why do we even need efficiency for our security teams? All right, think about the state of the global economy right now. It's top of mind for almost everyone. Organizations are looking to do more with what they have already. All right, so efficiency can play a big part of that. Number two, you can see that there. Let's talk about some of the things that are already keeping security teams from being efficient. Long before this current economic situation, there were probably things we did that could have been done better already. We just overlooked them for the moment. We were busy. These are things we're probably already aware of and thought about maybe altering or evolving eventually. Right now it's time to kind of do that. Then finally, let's dig into how Microsoft Sentinel can help organizations be able to become efficient. Let's talk about some of the specific areas where Sentinel is engineered to build efficiency to allow security teams to unburden themselves with non-security tasks. So let's take a minute to set the stage. Why do we need efficiency and security? Will efficiency somehow compromise security, or will it actually bolster it? And is there truly a solution that can deliver the promise of better security through improved efficiency without any of that compromise? that we potentially might think we might experience. We need to develop a modern response to security threats based on efficiency. As a security analyst or security team, when you are actively hunting or investigating threats in your environment, you are on the clock. Things absolutely must happen quickly. You must get to the point of remediation as soon as possible, because one intrusion ultimately is going to lead to the next. One compromised account could lead to another. And like this crazy pandemic that we've been through, right? That is kind of a result and evidence of some of these economic woes. Exposure can spread uncontrollably unless contained. You've probably heard the phrase super spreader event many times in the last few years, right? If you don't control an identified threat quickly, it can become a super spreader in a matter of minutes. Based on recent surveys and reports, it's been determined that the average company needs 162 hours, think about this, to detect, triage, and contain a breach. Okay, so let's break this 162 hours, let's break this number down so we can get a better understanding of the situation, again, level setting, and our biggest threats actually to security. So the average organization takes 120 hours, to detect an attack. Okay, 5 hours to triage. That part during this investigation process where an organization determines whether they even need to do something with this thing or not. Is it a non-threat or is it a threat? 5 hours. That seems like a lot of time. 6 hours to investigate, and then 31 hours to contain or remediate the threat. Okay, so that's a total. You can't see it down there because of my face in the screen. That's a total of 162 hours. To me, knowing what I know about Microsoft Sentinel, that's absolutely a bit much. We can absolutely do better. We need to do better. All right, so most of you hopefully have heard of this 1-10-60 rule for cybersecurity, but if not too long ago, this 1-10-60 rule was proposed as a goal, right? Not a hard and fast rule, hey, we have to do this immediately, but the goal of a rule that we should be able to attain sometime in the future when the tools and technologies have improved enough for us to actually get there, right? So being improved. At the time when this 1-10-60 rule was invented, the technologies and the processes just weren't in place. The idea is that the most cyber-prepared organization should be able to detect an intrusion in under a minute, perform a full investigation in under 10 minutes, and then eradicate the adversary from the environment in under an hour to effectively combat sophisticated cyber threats. Hence, 1-10-60, this 1-10-60 rule. Now let's think about this in perspective, in respect to what we just talked about. 162 hours was the norm. Okay, let's put it in a bigger perspective. That's 6 3/4 days. Imagine that. Versus what we're trying to get to or trying to accomplish. And I promise you, as we talk more today, you'll see that even with Microsoft Sentinel, we can improve on this. But for everything that needs to be investigated, this 1-10-60 rule gets us to 1 hour and 11 minutes, or 71 minutes. 6 days, 6 3/4 days versus 71 minutes. That is a pretty significant efficiency, right? That's pretty good. For me, however, if I take a step back and I review operations from an analyst perspective, this list here are the things that absolutely must be done each day to fulfill and enhance security operations for any organization. All right, these are part of a standard security operations center workflow, part of normal daily operations, from triage, which we talked about, to identifying false positives, which is incidentally another way to evolve the SOC and to build bigger efficiency, but that's another discussion. Don't have to get into that. Want to stay on focus on task today. Understand that there's a number of value components built into Microsoft Sentinel to help streamline operations and even those manual irksome pieces, right, like hunting, which we'll talk about here shortly, for Security Operations Center efficiency. So my approach to discussion topics like today's are always based on working with our customers. Okay, I glean a lot of knowledge working with large number of customers, and based on, admittedly, and my wife can tell you this, an OCD, I want to solve their complaints, particularly when it comes to the topic of efficiency. Okay, it literally pains me when things aren't done from an efficiency standpoint, and I absolutely must fix them. You will see this if you follow me around. You'll see this in my life, right? Even from a personal perspective, I try to do things efficiently because I'm always trying to do multiple things, juggling all the balls in the air at once, right? I've become very good at that, I believe. Some people don't think so. I do. This list here are some of the complaints I've heard and captured from working with our customers. This list was developed based on their knowledge of working with their old tired legacy SIEMs or SIMs, however you pronounce it, and security tools. So most generally, those tools have been historically on-premises software and services, right? So we know that. As we move to the cloud, of course, Azure helps customers realize additional efficiency. But specifically for our discussion here today, we want to focus on these pain points and how we can improve even the most mundane and most manual processes, okay? At the end of this, we're going to come back and go through and talk about these complaints again to see how well we did surfacing and exposing those areas of efficiency that we've gleaned through Microsoft Sentinel. All right. So connecting data is brutally difficult. We need to be able to connect data from every avenue, every location within our organization. Otherwise, we have just one single security gap in our environment. Okay. Preparedness for hunting. Hunting is absolutely still a manual process, but there's things that we can do with the Microsoft Sentinel, which we'll talk about how we can improve that efficiency. But for a lot of organizations, they literally just stop this hunting operation, which is unfortunate because it's important to identify things within the environment before there's threat intelligence for those newly existing threats in the security landscape. Continual tuning and evolution of SOC is literally non-existent. They stand up their SIEM or they use their SIEM day to day, but they never alter or allow it to adapt to how their organization changes and how security landscape changes, which is kind of a huge security gap. Adding additional or enriching the investigation using external sources like threat intelligence or other entities. Customers find that mostly difficult. And then locating and maintaining these trusted threat intelligence sources, or TI as it's most referred to, right, for these SIEMs. Those are the things that literally there's just too much time spent on these inefficient processes. There's ways that we have to absolutely be able to resolve these. All right. Microsoft Sentinel already provides some automated functionality. Okay, so the most prominent and most glaring probably are the examples that I want to highlight as part of the remaining discussion today. But there's plenty more. Okay, in the time we have today, let's focus on the primary areas of Microsoft Sentinel that provide the most immediate value for efficiency. Stand it up. Get immediate value. All right. You'll see as we talk through these primary areas that Microsoft Sentinel works similarly to the tools that you may already be familiar with. Okay. However, each area has received deliberate and intentional focus for improved efficiency over existing legacy tools. Microsoft Sentinel was developed and created not because Microsoft just wanted to do this thing, but we identified through our own usage that there were some gaps and inefficiencies that existed. So Microsoft Sentinel absolutely needed to be born. All right. So unlike on-premises security solutions or other tools like Microsoft Sentinel, you don't have to worry about hardware or architecture, and Sentinel takes full advantage of cloud services, right? So this means that because Microsoft Sentinel is cloud-based and built on existing Azure services, a new Microsoft Sentinel instance can be stood up in less than 10 minutes. I promise you, that's a real thing. Obviously, there's some additional actions that need to be taken after it has been enabled, but imagine no longer having to worry about buying new hardware, maintaining disk or RAM, or having to configure the network just to secure the connection to the security tool that's being installed. That's enormous, all right? That's immense value. And then imagine being able to deploy a new security tool in a couple hours rather than it taking days of deployment and literally pushing everybody off the network while it's being done. All right. Also, because Sentinel is constantly updated, customers are always using the most current version of Microsoft Sentinel. They don't have to take down the system just to do an upgrade, right? Which that process can actually create a security gap all its own while the system is down, right? Sentinel always has the most current features and most up-to-date threat intelligence. Customers have to subscribe to something extra to be continually current. They only need to open the Microsoft Sentinel console every day and use it as they begin their day to have the most current version, right? So that's pretty cool. So there are two key and critical pieces that make a SIEM or SIEM, the Security Information and Event Management tool, valuable, all right? The first is having the ability to connect data literally from anywhere, any source, in any format. Because understandably, if an organization is not able to ingest even a single log that contains security events, there is at least one remaining gap in security. It may exist somewhere in the deepest, darkest, most forgotten corner of the environment and have a non-standard format. But without being able to glean the information from it into our security tool, we are exposed. Okay? Microsoft Sentinel makes it easy to connect data. A few clicks here and there. In most cases, we'll get the logs connected. The connection process even indicates and includes an auto validation to ensure that the security team member that's making this connection or attempting to make this connection has the proper access. This ensures less debugging of data connections, which absolutely saves time, right? That efficiency that we're looking for. The data connectors are supportable and sustainable because they are built based directly from the originating services guidance, okay? This eliminates guesswork, which actually saves time, right? When you think about it, the data is stored in a log analytics workspace, okay? If you're not familiar, a log analytics workspace can ingest and retain as much data as you can possibly give it. You don't have to call up Microsoft and request more space, or wait for your operations team to build it out for you, or have to estimate your new ingestion amount so the price of the existing SIEM contract can be reconfigured and you start having to pay more. If you're using or have used other SIEM solutions, you know exactly what I'm talking about. All right. To prove how focused we are in making sure customers connect their data easily, we've reimagined how data should be connected. Okay, so we have some semi-new capability in Microsoft Sentinel called Microsoft Sentinel Solutions. So our efforts to connect all data has generally been focused on these data connectors, but through solutions, this makes connecting data even more efficient. Right? Similar to the Azure Marketplace or the Windows Microsoft Store, this solutions in Microsoft Sentinel offers a package of deployment content. Okay, each solution contains several artifacts to make it complete, make it a complete package, almost like getting a present for Christmas. Including these packages include the connector, right? The parsers, so it understands the data that's being ingested, workbooks, visualizations, which we'll talk about here shortly for reports, analytics roles, analyzing the data for security perspective, and then the hunting queries, okay? So when you choose to deploy a solution, you literally get everything that you need to have success in connecting that source, whatever it happens to be. Cisco, Palo Alto, you see the example here, even the Oracle Database Audit solution. Okay, the second most critical, remember our first most critical piece is connecting data. Our second most critical piece of any SIEM, everything else is just gravy if we're talking about Christmas and turkey and all that good kind of stuff. Second most critical piece of any SIEM is data analysis or analyzing the data. Okay, Microsoft Sentinel provides auto analysis of data looking for security events. Rules analyze data on a schedule that you set, and once the defined threshold is reached, it generates what we call an incident. Okay, the incident is used to provide and develop context, for a full investigation. Okay, so this incident is a bucket of artifact and a bucket of evidence, including users, entities, devices, all of the things that you need to provide for a successful investigation of that threat. The query language itself is another important and key factor for providing efficiency for security teams. KQL, which I'll talk a little bit more about shortly, has been developed for performance and efficiency and actually powers the logic behind Microsoft Sentinel's analytics rules, hunting rules, workbooks, a bunch of other stuff. When an analyst, again, who is on the clock when security events are exposed, is looking for security events and potential threats, they need an efficient query language. All right? They need to be able, or at least have the ability, to produce results quickly. I've worked with customers that have, and I've got some really good stories about this, that have been amazed at the difference in the time it takes for their existing tool's query language to produce results compared to KQL with Microsoft Sentinel. Okay, so in a couple cases, using their same data, the customer's data, Microsoft Sentinel returned results in 10 seconds or less, while the results from the legacy tool took hours. Okay, again, those that are familiar with other tools know exactly what this looks like and exactly how critical it is to security operations. Great story, customer I worked with, municipal customer, law enforcement would come to them and request data. They knew, because of their tool and because of the inadequacy of the query language, the SLA that they gave everyone for returning data was 3 days, because it took that amount of time to create a query, debug the query, run the query, and then wait for the results to come back, right? So there's quite a bit of difference in getting results back in seconds versus having to wait 3 or 4 days for that operation to finish. Workbooks. All right, Microsoft Sentinel provides dynamic reporting tools in the form of integrated workbooks. These workbooks help analysts visualize data so it can be consumed in a much more meaningful way, but also allows the data to be manipulated dynamically. Okay, adjust the workbook focus, whether it's user account, host name, IP address, data source, or whatever it is that you're looking for, whatever filter it is you're looking to accomplish, and the workbook data is automatically adjusted, building the efficiency for reporting even that we're looking for, helping get, again, to that 1-10-60 rule, but in a more visual, more modern way, right? Organizations can develop their own workbooks to supply the team with common dashboards that contain critical data for SOC or Security Operations Center monitoring. I'm the kind of person, I love visuals, right? That's generally kind of how I learn. I prefer comic books to novels, right? And so this is what we're looking for, being able to take those KQL queries, those kind of single rows and columns, black and white stuff, and then turn it into visuals very quickly using the same query language. Pretty cool. So while we're here, I need to drop a bit of critical knowledge for you all as we're preparing coming up to this new year, okay? KQL, this query language that Microsoft Sentinel utilizes for its analysis and visualizations, is a necessary thing to learn, okay? It's necessary, yes, for security purposes, but it's also necessary for any Microsoft service, including things like Azure IaaS and PaaS services, and even Microsoft Intune, okay? We've made it extra easy to learn, all right? Here's a link down at the bottom, aka.ms/mustlearnkql, to a 20-chapter series full of examples, hands-on, a full demo environment, and even a certificate for those that complete it. I have hand-delivered over the last year over 1,600 certificates to date, right? So there's a lot of people learning this because it's necessary. There's also Amazon versions of the series. There's a free version to read for Kindle Unlimited subscribers, and even hard and soft cover versions so for those that like physical copies of books. Or if you happen to be attending a conference that I'm speaking at in the near future, happy to sign those physical copies. Just search Amazon.com for Must Learn KQL. All right. Trying to get to the next screen. There we go. Okay, I'd also be remiss if I also didn't mention that the Must Learn KQL Learning Series has spawned a merch store, among other things, where all proceeds go directly to St. Jude. Okay, so there's plenty, I promise you, of holiday goodness out there for those that would like to give to a worthy cause this season, get something for themselves, or give something to the favorite geek in their life. Okay, just go to aka.ms/mustlearnkqlmerch to get to it and start looking through there. And you can see down at the right there, kind of covered by my silly face, but there is actually a KQL Christmas song. So you can check that out as well. All right. Incidents are what are generated by automatic data analysis from our analytics rules. Okay. The incidents contain events, alerts, and context that are critical for ensuring quick and complete investigations. Okay? Investigations are powered by the entities and additional context that is supplied from the analytics rules and the incident's context. We talked earlier about that enrichment, one of those pain points, right? The data supplied is used to automatically stitch together the story and timeline of how an event transpired in the environment. So the analyst can get a first-hand look at the crime scene, the actors, and all the evidence, right? This ensures that an investigation can proceed uninhibited and without unnecessary delay. Those that are familiar with investigations in existing tools, let's just call them non-Microsoft Sentinel, are very aware that the majority of the time you are dealing with thousands of alerts, managing alerts, trying to get to the bottom of which alerts are important, which are critical, which are non-critical, and that we can just kind of close out. Microsoft Sentinel is intelligent enough that it looks through those alerts, groups them together in a way that is meaningful to allow investigators to take a look at the storyline versus just a bunch of alerts. So very big efficiency from that perspective. Hunting, we talked about that as one of our bullet points of pain points, right? Hunting is one of the more painful areas for any security team, right? It's don't have to be embarrassed about this. It absolutely is for any security team. Hunting is still a manual process, okay? It probably will be for the unforeseen future here. It's a preparedness exercise that serves to answer 4 simple questions about the environment. Number 1, does it exist? That threat or reported threat, right? Number 2, where does it exist in my environment? Number 3, why does it exist? And then obviously, of course, how do we react to that, right? Answer all those questions. So we put effort behind supplying efficiency even in this area within Microsoft Sentinel, helping to make many of those mundane tasks of preparedness more automated so security teams spend less time in this area, okay? It's still necessary, right? I'm not going to tell you that you have to stop doing this or you can stop doing this. It's just no longer drudgery, okay? It simply becomes a normal metered part of daily operations. Okay, this is one of those areas I talked about that organizations have given up, sadly, because it seems too time hungry or inaccurately deemed unnecessary. You know, we're just not going to do this anymore. That's absolutely wrong. All right, without this operations, organizations will not be prepared for the next zero-day threat. Okay, over time, when newly discovered threats are exposed to the environment, Microsoft Sentinel hunting queries can be evolved into analytics rules so that they stop being a manual operation, are now part of the automated configuration. So over time, through hunting, through this manual critical process, we can make Microsoft Sentinel even more intelligent and more efficient. All right, live stream is a huge factor for efficiency and uniqueness to Microsoft Sentinel. This allows an analyst to kick off a query to run continuously so that it is constantly monitoring for whatever that threat that we've identified, okay? When or if it identifies the defined threat as active in the environment, the analyst will be notified. This allows the analyst to go about addressing their other responsibilities while Microsoft Sentinel does its work for them, okay? Watch lists. Watch lists in Microsoft Sentinel provides an awesome way to maintain lists of things like trusted users or IP address or domains to avoid. Okay, the content in these watch lists can be integrated with existing analysis, those rules, so that those things stored there can help dictate when an alert is issued. All right? For example, if an incident is raised against someone doing some sort of administrative task or activity, but that user is actually an administrator and should have the access and capability to do that task, then it's most efficient to not report on that individual. Okay, this enables security teams to work more efficiently by focusing only on those alerts and those incidents that mean something versus spending wasted time just closing out incidents that shouldn't have been created anyway. User Entity Behavior Analytics, or UEBA, or now in Sentinel, it's more really kind of just like entity behavior because it's not just focused on users, is a way to quickly get more information about a user or device from a historical perspective. So UBA is constantly monitoring the entities in the system to record what they have done in the past. Okay, this is helpful to a security analyst in that they can quickly look back over the recent history of activity of this event and determine if this currently reported activity is an outlier, or maybe it is more common. Maybe this user has done this a lot recently or over time, right? So from an efficiency standpoint, this provides for quicker identification, that enrichment of this situation. Automation, obviously, right, in Microsoft Sentinel is supplied through workbooks, right? Automation, when you think about automation, you think absolutely that's the first place for efficiency, okay? Playbooks can be run in 3 different locations in Microsoft Sentinel. In the investigation graph, which we talked about earlier, directly in the incidents themselves, and also enabled as automation by attaching a playbook to an analytics rule or an automation rule, okay? So analytics rule runs, finds that something, that security event that we told it to go look for, right? And based on the configured schedule and threshold, it generates this incident. But now also does something else. Instead of just creating the incident, it'll do something else for us, and whatever we told it to go do based on the response, how we want to respond to that incident. Maybe something as simple as sending the security team an email alert, all right? Or maybe based on that KQL logic, it creates a service desk ticket, assigns it to a very specific analyst that has that specific skill set, say it's malware, right, or ransomware, and locks out a suspicious or potentially compromised account, right? Incidents raised, alerts generated. This automation, this whole series of automation is accomplished, and our environment is protected. Playbooks are built on logic apps, which means the types of automation that can be developed are only limited by the imagination, okay? Automation really speaks for itself. Having the ability to automate common and repetitive tasks for more efficient operation is absolutely key. But there's additional context here that rarely received its due. Automation can be applied to investigations so that even more suspects and evidence are collected and are available in the incident, making the investigative process even more expeditious. Automation rules, on the other hand, are a way to create quick, effective automation. You can even call playbooks. So while playbooks enable interaction with things like external APIs and can be very detailed and lengthy and logical, automation rules enable a much faster, easier method of applying automation. Okay, so for example, if there's an incident that comes through regularly and you have a specific person on your security team that is skilled in this area, use an automation rule to automatically assign the incident to that person. Okay, automation rules allow you to call playbooks to run. So an automation rule becomes like the traffic cop or filtering mechanism to help you determine, help Microsoft Sentinel determine if or how that playbook should run, right? This traffic cop is actually doing this filtering and stuff for you. Bigger automation, bigger efficiency. When creating custom content, you can manage it from your own Microsoft Sentinel workspaces manually or from an external source like a control repository. Okay, Microsoft repositories enables connections between Microsoft Sentinel and GitHub or Azure DevOps. All right, managing your content in an external repository allows you to make updates to that content outside of Microsoft Sentinel, and then have it automatically deployed to your workspaces. Many organizations use this method to keep multiple Sentinel instances updated or to quickly and efficiently deploy organization-specific content to a new Microsoft Sentinel instance. Imagine being able to deploy a new instance like that, right? Based on how you have evolved and created this initial Microsoft Sentinel instance. Really easy to deploy through acquisition. If you have an acquisition or you're deploying other Sentinel instances because your organization or your security teams have grown, this allows you to build efficiency even around that really easy deployment mechanism. MITRE ATT&CK is a publicly accessible knowledge base of tactics and techniques that are commonly used by attackers and is created and maintained by observing real-world observations. Okay, many organizations use the MITRE ATT&CK knowledge base to develop specific threat models and methodologies that are used to verify security status in their own environments. Microsoft Sentinel analyzes the ingested data not only to detect threats and help you investigate, but also to visualize the nature and coverage of your organization's security status. There's a tool within Microsoft Sentinel that allows you to go in and create scenarios based on your coverage within your environment and show you those gaps in your coverage in case you need to develop those because your user habits or your device habits or your organization needs to have that coverage, right? So this gives you a really quick, easy way to help investigate the areas of coverage that are necessary from an efficiency standpoint. All right. So to close out, let's jump back through our list to see if Sentinel was able to help in the areas where most of the efficiency complaints come from. I'm positive, I promise that we even covered more than this. Connecting data is brutally difficult. Remember that? We talked about Microsoft Sentinel, really easy to connect data and connect it in different ways. Preparedness and hunting is too time consuming. We talked about that, how Microsoft Sentinel has developed to provide efficiency through hunting and also through that live stream capability to allow the system to do the hunting for you. Continual tuning and evolution of Security Operations Center is non-existent. You saw how we've been able to do things within Microsoft Sentinel to help evolve. Even from that hunting perspective, if over time we determine that there's some hunting operations that we can even automate even more, we can turn those hunting queries into analytics rules so that we allow the tool to do the job for us. Adding investigative context. We saw through playbooks, we can add more context, we can add additional IP addresses. There's a lot of things that we can do to add evidence to those buckets, to those incidents, that bucket of information to allow us to be more efficient in our investigations. Locating and maintaining trusted threat intelligence sources. You saw our MITRE ATT&CK framework that's built into Microsoft Sentinel, which absolutely is that source of trusted information. All right, so keep in mind, what we talked about today are only a small subset of features in Microsoft Sentinel. There is so much more, okay? And it's continually being improved and updated, all with efficiency in mind. If you go back to the very beginning and those additional Microsoft Sentinel resources, rewind back, go take a look at that so you can get some additional clarity and information about Microsoft Sentinel if that's of interest to you. All right, so thank you all for your time today, okay? Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and to all a good night.